Okay, so we are here. We are talking. Hey, everybody. Welcome to 20Q, 20 Questions with Interesting People, where we learn the origin stories of everyday superheroes in the LGBT community and friends. I am your host, the very handsome Tim Kirk, and our guest this time is raconteur, bon vivant, and man about town, Timmy Condon. Hi, Timmy.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me. That very handsome Tim Kirk. I can attest to that.
Well, that's good, because you have good eyesight. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into it.
Wonderful.
And a bit about your background. Where are you originally from, and what was it like?
Sure. I was born and raised in a city called Bethesda, Maryland. It's part of Montgomery County. I had a pretty atypical childhood. I grew up doing dinner theater. I was in my first dinner theater production when I was about 2.5 or 3 years old. Grew up with a lot of friends and family in the gay community. And then I started going to a Catholic all-boys school where I sort of learned that, boys don't kiss each other, and that's sort of bad. So it was sort of a unique perspective. I got to be in this sort of theater fantasy world at night, and then I would go to this private Catholic school with all these rich kids during the day. And it was sort of a neat experience to get a little taste of both worlds.
Well, that's interesting. I was watching a show called The Kids Are All Right last night, which is set in 1972, and the narrator is named Timmy. And he was 12 years old in 1972, and I was. He came from a large, obviously, Irish Catholic family, and he was the middle boy. I'm the middle boy of 6 kids. We had 3 older sisters and 3 boys, and I was the middle boy. So I'm like, oh, well, his name's Timmy. He's my age, and he's a theater queen.
This speaks to me. I can get in on that. I can identify.
So I was, and he's doing theater as well. And it turns out he's the guy. He's actually the narrator. Who's ever doing the narration is he's the alter ego of the producer of the show, who's also created other TV shows.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, maybe this is, I would imagine it's somewhat autobiographical. Irish Catholic family with 8 kids in L.A. And they're all boys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. Poor mother.
Yeah. Not me, not my family, but it's close enough. We had 6.
And I was the youngest of 4 by a long shot. My youngest sibling, my sister Michelle, has 12 years between us, and my mom was sort of taking care of all of us at the time. My dad was out of the picture until I was about 6 years old when my mom started dating again. And they were divorced by the time I was born, and so I would sort of do an every other weekend thing where I would live with my mother, and then every other weekend I'd go and visit my dad once I was about 6 years old.
Wow. And Irish Catholic.
Irish Catholic, all the same father. My mom has, I think she's half German, and then she has some Irish and stuff, but my dad's 100% Irish. He's the youngest boy of 7, if memory's correct on that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aaron, go Brock.
Yeah. Me, man, was from Dublin. My father was from Brooklyn, so that makes him like professional Irish.
All right, I like it.
Yeah.
Spillane and everything.
You know something? Mickey Spillane was a lifeguard at Breezy Point, which is in the Far Rockaways. It's just the farthest of the Rockaways.
Oh, wow.
It's called the Irish Riviera. Oh. And he was actually a guy who would sit on the lifeguard chair with 2 beautiful busty blondes and a typewriter while he was wearing the My Camera fedora. No kidding. He really will. He really was.
That's a professional look. I dig it.
He and who else was a lifeguard there was Jack Lord, who was on the original McGarrett on Hawaii Five-0.
Oh my gosh.
How about that, huh?
That's funny.
Yeah.
I worked as a lifeguard.
Did you?
In Six Flags in Denver, Colorado. I moved to Colorado when I was 14. And
wow.
I lifeguarded there about 7 years, worked my way up to manager. So much fun.
When
we would close the park and we'd have our employee parties.
Really?
Like take single tubes down the family tube, raft ride, and stuff you're not supposed to do.
Okay.
But we were safe because we're all lifeguards. That's okay, right?
That's fine with me. I also attended a Catholic all-boys high school. Same high school that produced Bill O'Reilly, believe it or not.
Wow. And
Glenn Hughes, the Leatherman from the Village People. How about that? We just penned it. It's too funny. So I'm going to move on to the next question.
Let's do it.
Which life experience had the greatest impact on you?
That would probably be moving from Maryland to Colorado. I was 13 going on 14. I was just sort of growing out of my baby fat and getting a little more popular with the girls and the guys.
Okay.
And, and I kind of just got the rug pulled out from underneath me when I was told we were going to move to Colorado. Part of the reason being that my older sister Bridget was out there and she was getting ready to have a family, and my mom wanted to be nearby that. Part of it was also because I was kind of running into difficulties. I was dealing with issues of depression and isolation and things like that, and I had issues from my father's relationship.
I'm sure I can imagine. Yeah.
And so I was just, starting to experiment with alcohol and drugs and finding comfort with, sexual activity, as maybe a little too early on. And I guess that sort of intimidated my mom, scared her, whatever, and she thought that sort of doing a fresh start would be a good idea. But it was really rough on me. I was very resistant to the change, and I was determined to be unhappy because of the move. So I kind of didn't let myself enjoy aspects of Colorado until I grew up a little bit more, like 16, 17 years old, and sort of relaxed all that and realized it's not the end of the world. Like, things just kind of go on. But it was a big change for me. Kids were a lot different in Colorado. I couldn't really connect with them on a grand scheme as I had before in Maryland. And maybe it was just growing up in adolescence too, and sort of coming to grips with who I am played a part of that too.
Whereabouts in Colorado? Where's this?
We moved to Littleton, Colorado.
No kidding. My cousin lives in Littleton, Colorado.
It's a beautiful old town.
She lives on the same block, well, she did live on the same block as Columbine High School.
Oh, wow.
Her oldest son held the door for the killers. He had to leave. I think it was third period. He had to leave to go get his father. I think they're divorced now. He had to go get his father, go to his father's business. And, like many small businesses, I think it was a pizzeria or Italian restaurant, he couldn't get a delivery unless someone made a payment to the wholesaler. Okay. So his son had to leave school, get in the car, go to his father's business, get the money, or the cash or check or whatever it was, pay the wholesaler so that they would allow him to unload the delivery at his business.
Oh, wow.
He missed the entire thing.
Jeez.
Right? He held the door for him. He didn't know what was going on. He was so racked with guilt, he killed himself 7 years later to the day.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, but that's so funny that you lived in Littleton.
Yes, that was my freshman year when that happened.
Wow!
And
really?
Yeah, and I was in my metal shop class when we heard it going on.
Were you there actually at the high school?
I wasn't at that high school, but I was real close by, and it came on the radio. I went to Kent Denver Day School in Cherry Creek, and. They don't play in the same league, but we were friends with some of the kids over there, and one of the kids had transferred from the junior high into the high school, and he knew people who went to Columbine. So it was a real interesting perspective to be at a different high school, listening to the radio with it happening with a kid who was really good friends with people involved in it.
A little bit mind-blowing, right? I'm sure the consequences and the impact after the fact had a tremendous impact on you.
Yes, yeah.
Everybody, I imagine.
And I was also connected there. The shooting in the Aurora movie theater during the Dark Knight Rises.
Oh yeah, right.
One of my friends from college was in that theater when
really?
It happened.
Oh
yeah,
my God,
she wasn't shot. She was trampled, but she kind of found her strength in setting up this program called Aurora Rise, and they provide grants to people who have gone through gun violence, things like that, and they'll connect with comic book artists and get them to draw original art, and then they'll auction it off. It's a really good program, wow. Aurora Rise.
Right, Aurora Rise. So that's how people deal with PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Trying to make
very
something
impressive.
Good out of it.
Yeah, that seems like that's a really tough road to hoe.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. That's very, very difficult.
Yeah, but she's doing great. She lives in Jersey now.
Okay.
And yeah, she's happy.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you the third question, which is, what would you say to anyone? Because of your experience and your career as an actor right now, it's this is something else that most people don't get the chance. They dream about doing this stuff, and you have equity card?
I have my equity card, and I'm in SAG-AFTRA as well.
That's a step up above anyone else who does anything. You're actually a legitimate in the business.
Yeah, I was very lucky to get those unions when I was a child, and I've just kept
Oh,
paying dues
that's
the
right.
whole time.
Okay, right. Okay. So the question is, what would you say to anyone interested in an aspect of your experience? Meaning, if someone wanted to explore an idea or a prospective opportunity based on what you could tell them, what would be the main thing to encourage or discourage them?
I would say you have to stay motivated. You have to do something every day towards your goal, even if it's something as small as opening a play and reading a couple scenes, or something as major as meeting with a new possible agent. It's a very difficult business, and you have to keep yourself motivated. You will have your friends and your family who will be there for you, but it's not very forgiving. You have to stay driven. You have to stay motivated, and you got to trust your instincts. Because I've had some teachers in the past who I went to college to study musical theater and eventually graduated with my theater studies degree. And there were some teachers who I felt were more concerned with the reputation of the school as opposed to the sort of education they were giving to the students. And it's a difficult thing to get a college major for. Like, you can't go out and get a job with it. The say is like if you went to Harvard Law and you apply to a firm. But it's a combination of being lucky and being ready to receive the luck. You have to be talented, but you also have to have some drive and accountability for yourself, and you have to stay motivated.
Okay, I can see that very much. I mean, I don't know if you're a fan of The Simpsons.
Absolutely.
So one time when Bart was I think it was I Didn't Do It, the episode, and the door closes on him behind him, and it's done, it's over, everyone forgets his name. Like, that's pretty much how it goes,
That's how it goes.
Yeah, what's your name again?
Yeah, exactly. The beautiful thing is, though, theater can be anything. Just because you're not on Broadway, if you're some little dinner theater in, some small town, as long as you can make a connection with an audience and make them think, make them laugh, like, that's theater, and that's what makes me love it. Is when you can connect with someone like that.
I agree. I think it's something that you can't impart upon people until you've actually had that visceral reaction.
Absolutely.
Once you do it, it's like it's so addictive, right?
Oh yeah.
You can't. You want to do that for every time, every day. You want that feeling. You want to be able to have that connection with people, and I think that's a huge motivator. I think, right?
Definitely.
It keeps you motivated.
Yeah.
So on top of that, let's go to the next question. What would you say is your most noteworthy achievement?
Honestly, just being alive at this point.
Okay.
There are plenty of people who've been through worse struggles than I have, but I've had to battle my own demons growing up. I've been my own worst enemy. Between the ages of really 17 to 22, I was dealing with a lot of suicidal thoughts. I was hospitalized 3 times, twice for watch prevention and once for an attempt. And I think a lot of it had to do with the medication that I was on. I was on an antidepressant called Effexor, and if you're on the wrong antidepressant, it can be worse than not being on one at all. And it was just really increasing my thoughts of hopelessness and all that stuff. So,
wow.
But here I am. That was 10, 15 years ago. Now I have my own place. I'm living in New York like I always wanted to when I was a kid.
Okay.
I'm engaged to a beautiful, wonderful woman, and we're getting married in a year.
Awesome.
And we got a place together. We're going to get a cat soon. And, maybe I'm not where I thought I'd be at this age, but I'm proud of where I am. And just to be alive and surviving, and every day is a new struggle, and you just got to try to pick yourself up and do what you can do.
Wow. So this is kind of doubles right on top of the next question, which is the biggest personal challenge you have faced: a personal injury, a seemingly overwhelming task, a personal or professional goal, a difficult situation you had to overcome. Would you say that fits right along with those lines, or is there something else that you'd say which is the biggest personal challenge you have faced?
I think that's what it would be. My biggest personal challenge is my depression. I have anxiety-based depression, or at least I was diagnosed with that a decade ago or whenever. And so that's sort of a regret of the past and a fear of the future, and it steals away from your present.
Yeah.
And so, every day is
sir.
a new battle, and some battles are easier than others. Some days, I can't even get myself out of bed. But
that's understood.
It's also, you can only appreciate the mountaintop when you've been to the bottom of the valley. And so...
Yeah. I have my own issues, but I don't think I have... I've suffered that, and it's pain that other people can't... They don't see it. It's not visible, so they don't see it.
Sure.
But I know plenty of people who suffer from depression. I'm at my age, everybody gets scripted for something.
Oh, right.
You
got the money? I got a pill for that.
Even if medical insurance, they're going to give you something to just like make everything, because everybody has issues.
Absolutely.
And I'm amazed that we live in a culture that there's so many people are in true need of something, and it's not just a write-off. I mean, there's something so dysfunctional that requires so many people to be on scripts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what happened?
Who knows? It could be the static of a busy lifestyle that we're not really intended to cope with, but we force ourselves to do it.
Yeah, that's what I think it is.
It's part of the the dog-eat-dog rat race out
there.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe it always was, and we just became more aware of it. And then as things have changed and amped up and accelerated without any restraints or controls on that area of most people's lives, it just inflamed all these issues that people have.
Yeah. Certainly.
So there's so much more awareness of it now, but there's so many people dealing with meds. I mean, especially in New York.
Yeah.
What meds are you on? Everybody's on meds. So, okay, let's go to this next question, because this is another one, because you have, I'm sure you can tell me. What would you say was a transformational moment in your life? A meaningful gift, a reason to belong to something, being a parent, good job, bad job?
Well, I guess part of the short answer would be moving to New York and adjusting with that. The first year of the move out here was really difficult. I got my heart broken. I lost my job. I defaulted on student loans, and I was homeless for about 6 weeks.
No.
And it was after going through all that I realized that I had the power to control my fate, and if it was up to me, and nobody was going to make it happen for me, and I needed to focus. So as a result of my depression, I was using a lot of different drugs and coping with alcohol and stuff, so I sort of cleaned myself up with that, and I was exercising more, and it's going through that hot fire. It makes the blade all the sharper,
Yeah,
and
wow.
Living in New York is something I always wanted to do, and I knew it was going to be a challenge, but I had no idea some of the challenges that I was going to have to deal with. But looking back now, it just makes me feel all the better. Like, I feel more like an adult, more like a man than I was even just 7 years ago.
You want to refresh on that?
Please.
The funny thing to me is also, I having worked with people who were not from New York, on a number of different jobs, is how many people have a year, and then everything goes away. They can't deal with it. It's become so much for them. It overwhelms them.
Yeah.
And they leave.
Sure. Everybody moved out here after college.
Yeah.
And now I think I'm the last of 3 people.
Okay.
Of probably like 40.
Out of really that many? Okay. And it's just New York is not for everybody. You have to be. You have to take to it, and be able to deal, because there's an awful lot of stress with living here.
Yeah.
I constantly rail against, because we live right on 23rd Street, of all the sirens and they have to go down a 2-way street until they get to the end block. So and this is a very quiet week. Today is a very quiet day. Usually, it's just it's mind-numbing. The noise can be insane, and we've had a nightclub next door to us. So when there was a nightclub, when it goes till 5 a.m, you just want to kill people. Like, what is this? Would you please? And you look and you go, so this is a celebrity famous nightclub too. I mean, it was one of the places that Tracy Morgan used to come and throw up on the floor. You look at people who are 30 years old and you can tell they don't have an actual job and they're spending their parents' money because who is staying out till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday or Thursday night? There's just not that many people. It can't just be industry people. It's just, and you're going, oh my God, and they don't have any grasp of what the impact, because they just think everything's what around them. And the people in their cars, they live in this little environment, so they're honking the horns like crazy while they're playing music or they're texting or they're talking to somebody on the phone in their car. And the noise can just drive you crazy, and that is just one thing to contend with.
Yeah,
that's
one.
That's one minuscule thing. It's like one hair in your head.
Yeah, so that's your sleep.
Yeah.
And it's not just a simple solution of like get some earplugs. Like the whole house rattles when you got something like that.
The place that was next door was called Suede, and it was
comfy.
It was actually co-owned by Timbaland, who is Justin Timberlake's partner.
Sure.
So when it first opened, every night it was Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears, and 3,000 idiots who came to smell their farts because there's nothing that you want to do. So then when they broke up, every night it was either him or her, and then what's the name of the group that he was in again? NSYNC. And then them and the Boys to Men would come, and then all these other groups would come, and you'd get several thousand people swarming around this place every night. And it was made you hate the nightclub life. But the people I think who lived in the back of us, they felt the bass a lot more than we did, but we heard the noise. And then all these people with the car alarms and the fighting and the smashing and the yelling.
Yeah.
And the staff, too, all seemed to be people who drove in from the suburbs because they would set their car auto start, and then the car would stall or something, but then the alarms would go whoop, 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 and they'd go off, and then they'd stop, and then they would go off 5 minutes, and then whoop, 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 and then it would go on. So that on top of all that stuff.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was something you don't want to contend with.
I love the nightlife.
I love to boogie. But there's a time, and plus those places only have so much of a lifespan, and it went away.
There you go.
But, man, that was just... And then it became a place called the Door Club, which was a private club, and it was fantastic, because they had cameras outside, infrared cameras, right outside the door, and you'd see a limo would pull up, and somebody would get out and they'd scuttle in, and that'd be it.
Right.
Except for one night, Beyonce hosted her after party for the MTV Video Awards there, and the entire block exploded at midnight, and no one had any idea that was going to happen.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And it was called the Door Club, and it was owned by a couple of billionaires, and they haggled and they argued about the rent. And you're billionaires. So and then it closed, which was fine with me, and it became a bunch of different things. But that was that happened. It's kind of amazing, right?
Yeah.
And you just go, this is something you have to live with while you're here and to contend with, and you can't complain about the people you work with at the office the next day because they're like,
right. What are they going to tell you? Like, who cares?
Yeah, and on top of that, they don't have experiences, so they don't have any perspective, and they're like, what are you talking about?
So you got to bottle it up.
Or something. You have to figure a way to sublimate that kind of attention, or just it's a lot of stress.
Yeah, definitely.
So next question being, what drives you? What gets you up in the morning?
Well, either my bladder or my stomach. Frequency.
People tell me coffee, and I say, okay.
I guess just trying to enjoy life, trying to just squeeze the fruit and get as much juice as you can, no matter what that is, every day. It could be something simple as, just hanging out and playing video games all day, or going for a walk down by the river, something like that. Just trying to look at the opportunities as opposed to the danger. Trying to focus on the hope and not the fear.
Okay, that's great. That syncs with a lot of answers I've gotten from people. Pretty similar. That's in a pretty similar range. So that's funny. It's a lot of people feel the same way.
I like that. It's nice to know when you can connect with someone on a wavelength like
yeah,
that.
you'd be surprised at how many people feel very similar to you. So that's kind of cool.
Good question.
Well, thank you. So I have a good question here. Now, what's the first thing you want to come to people's minds when they think of you?
My sense of humor.
Really? Okay.
I want them to think that that's a guy who made me laugh and made my day a little nicer.
That's pretty awesome. I love that too. I always think I want people to think of me as being funny and genuine.
Yeah. Someone they can talk to and get advice from even.
Yeah. But I'm for real. I'm not a phony baloney. Like I may not be everything you want to be, but I'm not going to be fake.
Right.
And I want to make people laugh. I think that's the best thing.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So next question is, what is your Zen?
I was reading this question and I was trying to think, like, what is Zen? How do I define that? I guess the day-to-day sort of Zen for me, like a little relaxing time that I can take for myself, is some escapism to fantasy, whether it's, comic books or literature or video games or media. But I guess for the big picture, my Zen for me is water. Just the sound of raindrops on a window pane or a rushing river or the ocean waves. Just water is my Zen for me.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
We have a thing we do at night when we go to sleep, for the most part. There's something called the Silent Watcher. It's 4K videos on YouTube, and it's just footage of streams. Or he's got one, which I love. It's a campfire by a river.
Oh, I love
and
that.
you hear the pop and the sound and the crackle of the fire and the water going by and the birds in the background and stuff like that. And it's beautiful. It's very lush photography.
Oh, wow.
So that's one of those things. You just, okay, brain off.
That's lovely. I'm going to check that out.
It's called the Silent Watcher.
Okay.
And you can get them. We just we have Roku. We just project it from our phones onto the TV, and that's so you can put it on a timer and you can go to sleep at night. Yeah, it's a beautiful image and it's fabulous.
The Silent Watcher sounds like a Stephen King novel.
Yeah, it's kind of scary to me. Kind of creepy. Doesn't it sound a little bit on the creepy side?
It's YouTube. It's okay.
Yes. But it does sound a little like disturbing. It's not like he's lurking.
Right. I was like, who? So
Yeah.
who are we watching?
Yes. I know. It's a little weird. Right.
It's just a stream. He doesn't care.
And there's a few other people like this guy too as well, and they're all 4K video, so it's really vibrant,
Wow.
And it's just mountain streams or it could be the ocean, the beach, or something like that. But there's there's usually, because it's so lush and it's usually at a certain time of day. So there's a lot of like dark greens and blacks and browns and or rustic fall colors or something like that. So you see these very beautiful images, but they're so vibrant and they pop, but they're also very, very calming and reassuring at the same time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it too. It's terrific. So this is the last of my 10 questions. Something I called the threshold. I think everybody's crossed the threshold at one point in their life, and that's a point of no return. You can't go back. Okay, so how did you know when you arrived there? How did it feel to cross it? What was the significance to you? What did you leave behind? What are you glad you left behind, and what do you regret leaving behind? And you can take a look at that question again, and think about that. It's like you have irrevocably changed. Something's happened. You've crossed that threshold.
I guess that probably would be when I was 18, my senior year of high school. I was the student body president, and I got expelled 2 weeks before graduation because I played middleman for a kid. I facilitated getting him a bag of weed.
Oh, man.
And then he smoked it behind the dean's house, and they asked him where he got it. He said, Timmy Condon gave it to him. Wonderful. And so I got expelled. I got suicidal, and that was the first time I was admitted to a hospital for a suicide watch. And, I had learned from when I moved from Maryland to Colorado that you can have your plans and they're not going to go Like, life isn't going to really care about your plan. Sometimes things are going to happen. But when I got expelled, it really solidified it for me. And I had been raised to believe that if you don't go to college, if you don't follow this plan A to, you know, you go from A to B to C, then your life's going to be ruined. Then there's no other chances for you. And it was sort of an eye-opening moment to me that I had to break free of that and sort of realign what my principles were and understand that bad things are going to happen and it's not the end of the world. And something that I lost, I guess I didn't really lose my innocence, but I certainly lost a sense of naivete. And if you know, I learned a hard lesson. If you're going to break the rules, you have to be prepared to accept the consequences.
Yeah.
And now weed's legal in Colorado, so, you know, go figure.
Became legal in Canada yesterday, I think, was it?
Yeah. But it was a real eye-opening experience for me, and, you know, I realized that you can't blindly put your faith in people as well. Like, sometimes things are going to happen, and, like, I realized I couldn't blame the kid for getting caught and rolling on me. Like, what was that going to do? Wasn't going to really help anything. And I sort of had to accept that it was my choices that brought this consequence to me. And I ended up getting my diploma. Like, it was really kind of special. A bunch of these parents, students who I had touched in some way or affected, like through drama or through football or through just being a nice person to them. All these parents kind of rallied around me and basically allowed me to get my diploma. They're like, it's 2 weeks, just let him get his diploma. He won't walk.
That's awesome.
You know, just let him have this so he can go to college and move on with his life. And I was able to get that. And so that was kind of special too. It let me know that, you know, just being trying to make people feel welcome and respected, it sends out little ripples in a pool. And you might not see the reaction, and you might feel it come back to you.
So, what did you actually leave behind in all that?
I guess in some ways I left behind blind optimism, and I realized that things aren't just going to go the way you want them to unless you take some sort of action and you have some sort of accountability and responsibility within yourself.
Wow. Okay. Well, and what do you regret leaving behind?
I regret leaving behind opportunity. Well, that's not right. I regret leaving behind missed opportunities, I guess. Like,
Okay.
I didn't realize how many things I had.
Yeah.
You know, how much those choices I made when I was that age were going to affect things that happen for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And
You never do.
You never do, right?
No one has foresight.
Exactly.
You know? Some people, I think, are very cagey, and they are able to put things into parameters before other people. And other people have just great instincts. Other people are brilliant. But I think most of us really don't think before we act.
Right.
You know, or we don't take into account what the possible, you know, and I always say this, when you get what you want, that's only 5% of what comes with it. You know, you have to be prepared for the other 95%, and most of us are never prepared for all the other things that you have to contend with when you get what you want.
Absolutely.
And if I think some people have that built into them, or they have that programmed, or so they learn that lesson at an early age and they succeed very well. And other people, they get lucky, but most of us have to stumble and bumble along and pay the price.
Absolutely.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Learn the hard way.
Yeah. School of Hard Knocks. I think that's most people, and just don't give up. I think that's the lesson I keep on hearing from people who I know over and over again is never give up. You know, and that's Winston Churchill too. Never, never, never give up.
Right.
You know, and that's the only way you succeed. Woodrow Wilson's famous thing, you know, persistence. You know, like nothing. I've seen genius doesn't on its own doesn't work. I've seen many, you know, all these different examples, and it's a famous quote, but persistence is the one thing that succeeds. You know,
absolutely.
So so now we're going to go to your 10 questions.
All right.
So you want to tell me? Let's see, which one did you want to choose? Did you want to go through? And we'll just take that.
Sure. How about this one? What do others not know about you?
Okay.
What do others not know about you? I voted for Donald Trump. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true.
Thank you. I'd be spraying you with Windex or something right now.
I guess I'm not as happy as I pretend to be all the time. I think that's people who live with depression are very good about putting up a face, and either because they don't want other people to know or they don't feel validated. Their feelings are just, oh, that's just how I'm feeling today.
Why don't you just get over it?
Exactly, right? And some people can't understand. It's hard for people to understand.
Don't you think the people who are never depressed, it's like, what's wrong with you? How come everything is so good all the time?
Right.
Because I know too many people who deal with this on a regular basis. But I mean, it can't. Everything can't be. And I just wish I had that in me to be so completely, relentlessly, and it's not cheerful. It's just not having to suffer from that experience.
Right. Not letting the little things get to you.
Yeah. So I'm amazed that when people can be that way, or go through their entire life that way, blissfully, serenely happy.
Yeah.
I wish I was. I thought just part of being Irish Catholic was just
Always singing, have a song in your heart,
no,
the wind at your back, right?
Always feeling guilty about something.
That too.
That's what I always thought. You're wrong. Something's something is wrong with you if you're just too happy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because
you must be insane.
Or you're a sinner
person.
or something wrong. So. Okay, so what do you think the next question would you like to answer?
Least favorite responsibility.
Okay.
Paying my student loans. I am very displeased with that. I went to college for 7 years. When I was 21 years old, I started. And I changed my major 4 times, the reason for me being there for so long. And I ended up... I thought I was making payments on the entire loan. As I said before, I defaulted right when I was out of school because I couldn't afford the payments, so I just wasn't making them. Got the loan back into good standing, and I've been making monthly payments. And just recently, I was told that all of the loans weren't consolidated. So now I'm back up to paying a total sum of like $90,000. And it's something like if it doesn't get expunged or something like that, I'm going to be paying it for the rest of my life.
Wow.
There's no way with the money that I earn right now that I can, pay this thing back. And I was always raised, you have to go to college, you have to get a college education to get these opportunities. And I don't regret the college process and everything. I wish I would have selected a different major that would have been applicable in getting a, regular job. Right now I'm just bartending to survive, and if I don't book a paying show, I don't know what the next step is, pretty much. It's like I maybe go back to a technical college where I can learn to be a dental technician or something like that.
Okay, I understand that. I went to the French Culinary Institute, and I got in months before. I actually happened to be lucky enough to be touring the school one day, the day I went to tour the school, and I had worked at what had been the largest proprietary school in America. It was called the Center for the Media Arts, so I knew a little bit about how the school operated. So I went in, and I happened to walk into a classroom where the instructor was substituting for the teacher who called in sick that day, and he was a chef who I formerly worked with. So I got in, but I got in early, and it was a huge discount for getting in early in those days, because it's $50,000 to go in. So I had to, I got a huge discount on that, and what happens is you had to pay off, and it, the way it started to pay, but I paid that off, and I can't tell you the sensation, the last check, and knowing you don't owe anybody for that at all anymore was pretty fantastic.
I bet.
And also because I just got that huge discount for applying early and getting in early, and he was he'd said, "I'll be your reference, don't worry, you're in." So I was like, "Okay, great," and I got in. And most people when they get out of cooking school, they all think they're going to be on the Food Network, and you're lucky if you make $12 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And it's murder, and it's 60, 70 hours a week on your feet.
Yeah.
And it's it's
getting burned, getting cut, yelling, trying to keep
the abuse
tickets.
And the primitive mentality of so many people you work with, even people who are respected professionals. They come from a completely different mentality. So it's not worth it for a lot of people, and most people crap out. And I had been in the business for a long time, so even then, still my hands were ruined. So I couldn't even try to after a few months after getting out. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But boy, I'm telling you, paying off that loan, and I can't imagine what you're going through right now.
Yeah, it's
a lot less expensive for me in terms of just what the cost of the interest and everything to do that.
It's even worse for my fiance because she took out a loan that was legal when she did it, but is now illegal. She pays $500 a month on top of New York living and costs. So she's technically earning more money than I am.
Wow.
But it's like she never has money to, afford little extra niceties or anything.
Yeah,
it's just
terrible.
Survival.
Yeah, and you both work together still, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they give you a certain amount of benefits or help you, because it's murder. I mean, it's I know that's a cruel thing, and current climate, the claims of all these jobs are like, well, none of these jobs are really worth it because 40% of people can't make ends meet, even when they're employed, and most of these jobs are like in places where it's $11, $12 an hour.
Right.
You're working at a CVS or a big warehouse someplace, and they're all forgiving. They couldn't care less. You don't like it, someone else will come along.
Absolutely.
And it's just, this is what we're given,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not enough to live on. It's not enough to have a life on, other than just like survival. Like you say, that's cruel, and that's unjust.
Definitely.
Okay, so
well, let's try doing something.
Yeah.
Happy. Let's see what the nice king. Here we go. Here's a good one. Tell me about your relationship with the animal kingdom.
Yes, please.
I love animals. Every kind of animal. I'd say the only animal I'm really afraid of is a shark, and that's because I made the mistake of watching the movie Jaws in the car when we went to the beach one time when I was very young.
Okay.
But I just love animals. I love the idea of just connecting with something, like dogs are so loving, and like they just want to be pet, and they just want to be loved, and and cats. I'm everyone says, oh, I'm both cat or dog. I guess I'm more of a cat person. They're so interesting and fascinating, and even something as not articulate or fluffy like a turtle. I had a little pet turtle when I was a kid named Socrates, and he ran away, and it broke my heart. Because I put him out on the porch one night because I thought he'd liked it, and I came back.
I'm thinking that he would stay around
right?
there. Oh, poor thing. Oh.
But yeah, I believe in animal rights. I've never been hunting. I really wanted to when I was a boy, and I'm glad I didn't because I don't know how I would cope with, having shot something. I go fishing. Maybe that makes me a hypocrite. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for me to say because I understand different cultural aspects of where people come from.
Exactly.
It's an imperative, or it's just inherent in there. I was reading something about a woman who she pulled up on a curb and somebody shot her, and she still has the bullet in her arm.
Oh my gosh.
And where she came from, Alabama, she was explaining, the culture, and I'm like, well, I'm from here, and I don't, my big thing is having handguns. There's different than assault rifles, and they said that because there's such a wild boar or a feral pig population that ruins crops, they have to kill them using semi-automatic rifles because otherwise
powerful enough to
I understand that, and it's part of the culture where they come from for boys to take the girls and show what a man he is to hunt, and even though it's all rigged and set up and like this, it's a docile animal, and basically but this is a big, it's a rite of passage, and it's part of the culture. So, nothing that I personally approve of. I don't do this at all, but I can understand that that's something that goes on. We also just recently lost our pal of almost 17 years, Ricky. If you see that little patch of that's some of his wasted leg. So we haven't vacuumed that. That's where his fur is. So just because we got rid of everything else that had anything to do with him, and this is just the one lingering reminder. And then we've vacuumed that down a little bit, but that's where he used to lay. He used to like to get the lacrosse breeze, and he was my best pal. He was our baby. So we absolutely are cat people.
Yeah. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Did you see the Catwoman with Halle Berry?
No, I didn't. I think I made a point. Really?
A bottle of whiskey, give it a shot. Yeah.
Okay. So, what do you think would be the next one? Bernie Mac.
Go for A, money, or B, happiness.
Almost everybody has chosen this question.
I guess everyone has their 2 cents they want to share about
that,
right? It's in this day and age, it's hard to find them mutually exclusive, I guess. I've never really had money growing up. I've never wanted for things. Like, I got a car when I was 16, and I've never had to worry about where my next meal is coming from or things like that. But I went to school with kids who were, like, in the stratosphere. And, like, I was driving an 87 Chevy Cavalier. They were having a new 2000 Audi. It's like... And so I got to see the perspective of people who had that access to money and had, like, indoor swimming pools and indoor basketball courts in their house for a family of 2 people, or a family of 4.
Nice.
2 parents, 2 kids. And I know that the money doesn't guarantee happiness because it can, if it becomes the penultimate goal, then you alienate other people. You lose your own sense of self and humanity trying to pursue that. And it's absolutely possible to be happy without the presence of money. And, some people who don't have a lot of money are the happiest I know. So I guess if I have the choice, like if it didn't preclude the other, I'd take money. But, I know that happiness is the better choice.
Okay. I have a little story I always tell. My father reminded me of this story. My mother was very fond of Bermuda. So was my dad, but my mother my parents met and married in England, and my father was in the Air Force. My mother had moved over to England from Ireland. It's a very English culture. The UK is centric. So, and that's, it's very colonial British, right? No. So she liked it a lot. So we would go there on cruises a number of times. And one time, I pointed out to my father, he reminded me of this, we were getting off the boat one day. And, of course, I have a bad back, and, of course, some woman nails me to take the heavy thing off the thing because they're going to stay on, leave the boat and go to a hotel or something. So I'm like, so I'm dragging this thing off, and I'm helping her off. And all the people who were Americans were the most miserable, materialistic people. They're all miserable. And you're seeing them all get off the boat, and they're unhappy. And now, there are Europeans on the cruise as well, and they're genuinely different. They're genuinely more intrinsically happy. The Americans are just, they are. When you see them getting off, the Americans, they've got a dour grimace on their face, and they're unpleasant. And all the people in Bermuda who work on. It's called Front Street in Hamilton, Bermuda. It's where one of the places where the cruise ships dock, and it's a big long strip, and it's mostly retail, and they have very very tight for space because there's not grown any more real estate. So there's a shop and there's a little restaurant cafe that's wedged in upstairs, and all the people who do all the cab driving or all the tourism rides, they're all sitting there, and you see all of them, and they see each other in the morning, and they live there, right? Couldn't be happier to see each other, shaking each other's hands, big smiles on their faces. And you look at all these Americans all pushing and shoving to get off. Yeah. And my father pointed out.
And it's genuine handshake, genuine joy. Like, my friend, wow.
People who, and there's only 61,000 people who live in Bermuda, right? And most of them are native born. There are people who buy, people like Mike Bloomberg and Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones live there, and I think Daryl Hall has a place there, and Julia Roberts, and a lot of wealthy people, but they live in virtual estates or on yachts or something like that. There's only one car allowed per household, but everyone can have a scooter, and the scooters all over the place. And the people who live there generally they're very pleasant. They say not a problem there all the time. And that's a very current thing that people, but they generally like each other and they're happy. And most of those people aren't wealthy, right?
Yeah.
So, but the people coming up from the Americans are spoiled and they have money. Obviously they're on a cruise, right? So, and you're looking at, wow, you're just miserable, aren't you? And they are,
They don't know how to switch it off. Don't know how to just...
Don't have the right priorities.
Right.
And they think just going on this vacation is going to recharge the batteries so they can face the dragon again, And I think that's what a lot of people do, and I think until the last night of the cruise they don't enjoy themselves, and they
wind. They can unwind maybe a little bit.
6 hours.
Sucker.
Yeah. Spend a lot of money to do that, the decompression button.
Mm-hmm. Here's the next question.
Okay.
Who do you read?
Yeah, that's another good question.
That's a good one. I grew up loving Greek mythology. Ken Kesey, not Greek mythology. Obviously, I'm transitioning here.
It's okay.
Alexander Dumas. I liked contemporary writers. I like. Oh gosh, why can't I think of his name? Fight Club. Chuck Palahniuk. There you go. But my favorite of all time, I grew up reading his books, and he passed away a few years ago. Brian Jacques, or I think it's Jakes. I always used to say Jock because that's how it's spelled. But he wrote this series of books, the Redwall series, and all the characters are like sort of small critters. And like the benevolent ones are mice and moles and badgers, and then the evil ones are rats and ferrets and weasels and foxes and things like that. And they're sort of like these young adult books. They're very easy to read on the subway train because you can get into them at 20-minute increments or whatever. And they're just very charming, lovely books. He grew up during World War II when there was a food shortage. So when he writes his books and they're having a great feast, the food's always very detailed. And I just always wanted to sit in the great Redwall Hall and eat these wonderful feasts with him, with the characters that he's created. And
they're not anthropomorphic. They live in an animal kingdom. Do they? Or is that they live at the houses and
there's no people, but they seem to be the size that they would be in the natural world.
Okay.
Like sharks are giant to them and fish are bigger than they are, but there's no people. But they do walk on their hind legs and
so they are anthropomorphic.
English.
So that's interesting.
And they're just very charming books, and for some reason they never became as famous as like The Hobbit or whatever you want to consider for fantasy novels, Lord of the Rings. But I feel like they're just as epic and enjoyable. So Brian Jakes, Redwall series. Check them out if you haven't done so yet.
Did you ever read the Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test?
No, but it sounds delicious.
That's Tom Wolfe. It's basically a documentation of the Summer of Love and the Merry Pranksters and Ken Casey.
Oh yes.
So it's a fantastic story. Tom Wolfe, the guy who wrote Bonfire of the Vanities. This is a pretty much just a nonfiction. This is just telling the story of before the Summer of Love and the Summer of Love, but everything leading up to that. And the electric Kool-Aid acid test was I'm pretty sure it was at Ken Casey's house every night.
Oh wow!
He used to have a big bucket of Kool-Aid with acid, and people would sit drink the Kool-Aid. The one before there was the Jonestown massacre. There was you go there. So the house band was the Warlocks, otherwise known as the Grateful Dead.
Oh wow!
Right, and in the book, and then there's stories. There's a whole load of stories about everything from being on the bus, with the merry pranksters and everything. But there's really one great story about Jerry Garcia refusing to play one note until they showed the movies, the short films, experimental films of his best friend, Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh, wow.
How about that?
How about that?
Yeah,
Man.
something else. And they were best friends.
That is so cool.
Yeah, how about that, huh? So that's if you ever get a chance, if you like reading Ken Casey, read that book. It'll tell you about the character and the stories and like what shaped them and what motivated and inspired them. So when you read everything else that these guys wrote and what they did, is based on the mentality of people who have lived this wild life. Garcia himself was he did grow up in L.A. and he had a hard knock life, and they lived on the edge. I mean, a really ragged edge of life as a child. He grew up in bars, and I think he was a single mother, and he and his brother Neil, and he went into the service, and he came out, and I think he learned guitar in 6 months, and he became a fixture with all of these guys. And Casey's was seminal to all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's a great document, and it's a great read. It's very intricate. If you ever read Tom Wolfe, it's almost like who's the guy who it's almost like James Joyce in that sense that it's so packed with information as you're reading it. It's not that dense, but I mean there's a lot of information you go. So I recommend reading that. That's something to read, and it's all nonfiction.
I love that. Yeah.
Okay, so what would you like for the next one? You got 1, 2, 3,
Here's
4,
one.
5, 6.
Any regrets?
Yes. Okay.
And it made me just think of this when you mentioned that Jerry Garcia served in the armed forces.
Yeah.
And I hadn't realized that, but when I was 18, that's when 9/11 happened, and I was 17 when it happened. Anyway, I was really considering joining the Navy at that point, and then George W. Bush got reelected, and so I kind of decided not to join the Navy once that happened. And I think maybe joining some branch of the armed forces would have been beneficial. I think a lot of the best writers have been in the armed forces. There's something about seeing people fighting each other on that scale, I think, that elicits some sort of consciousness.
Joseph Heller.
Yeah.
Right? Catch-22. One of my guests, Avery Cruz, who's transitioning, he was Randy Hernandez. Came out to his parents, I think 18 or 19. They kicked him out of the house. He went to go live with his aunt. He went down a bad road, and his aunt sat him down and laid everything out for him. Says, I love you, but you can't do this to yourself, and you can't. This is not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So the next day, he joined the army. Spent 4 years in Iraq. Saw 2 of his best friends get killed, and I had to take away the rifle from his roommate, who was going to kill himself.
Oh my gosh! So
and he's got the story. He got out of that. He had a bucket list when he got out, and he did every single thing on the bucket list.
Yeah, it makes you appreciate,
Yeah.
and at least, I mean, like how hard is it to worry that this guy's being a jerk on the subway when you've been shot at
Your
by an
perspective,
enemy?
plus
You know what I mean?
What a fool you are to be so concerned with this nonsense.
Right. Yeah.
We don't even have any idea,
Yeah.
and the stress that they go through, and the PTSD that so many people suffer from. But he got his BA. Volunteered at GLAAD. I met him when he was volunteering at a GLAAD Media Awards. Became friends with him. I helped him get I think I did. I helped him get an internship at NBC, and he got a full-time job, and he got his MBA. did a bunch of different things. He started running. He ran 6 marathons, and mostly to visit the people he served with. So he'd go where they lived, and he'd stay and visit them while he ran marathons. Right?
That's so great.
It's great, right? Did all these things. Came out as vegan.
Wow.
And I think in February of last year, and people freaked out on him. Came out as transitioning last year, and almost nobody cared. How about that?
That is incredible.
I did so many things. So I can't disagree with that, because that may be a linchpin for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't prescribe it as a way to become inspired. But
there are other options.
Yeah, but I will say that's absolutely has added to a lot of character of a lot of people. I would say,
definitely,
for me anyway. And
I have a lot of respect for people who want to put their, sacrifice their lives to protect.
It's also a way. So many people. It turns out it's the only way out. They don't have many other options, financial or opportunity.
It is a system that is
and it
focus people.
Yeah, and it gives you not only focus, but it gives you discipline, and you join a bigger fraternity that and because with the GI Bill you're able to go to school afterwards, and it helps you do an awful lot of things, and your contacts are with you for forever, especially these guys.
Right.
They have these lifelong bonds because of what they've been through, and they can't describe it to us, and we can't comprehend any of this stuff, and they know it. So when you see stories about, homeless vets or these people going through all this stuff, you just have to defer to them, because there's nothing.
There's nothing.
You have no grasp. You have no ground to speak from anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4 more.
Okay.
I have one question. I think a lot of people love the answer. Love to this question.
Go for it.
Okay. What is the most grievous offense you have to live with every day? Which is it's something that gets under your skin, something that people do to you. Where is it? What is the most grievous offense you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis from others? Gets under your skin. Rudeness, sloppiness, carelessness, something you have no room for in your mental landscape. The thing that irks you. Someone not closing a door or repeatedly mispronouncing something, stuff like that.
Well, I work as a bartender,
right.
So I have to deal with a lot of not like disrespect, I'd have to say. Like I got something everybody wants. Everybody wants to get drunk. Everyone wants to get drunk for free. So it's just like and people not knowing what they want to, and being miseducated about things. For example, I had a lady, she said, give me something kind of like a margarita. So I suggested, how about a tequila sunrise? And she said, oh, I don't drink tequila. And
okay.
So it's like, it's not a big deal, but it's just like how okay, I don't know how to help you. I really want to, but you're not helping me out. People who don't tip well, that's the biggest annoyance.
Absolutely.
I think people don't understand that workers in the United States food industry depend on tips.
Yeah.
And it's not just the servers and the bartenders. They're the ones tipping out the food runners, the hosts, the barbacks,
Maitre d'.
Exactly. Everyone, whoever.
I did that for years, too.
In some restaurants, it's legal for them to take tips to pay the dishwasher.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's just an extra thing that we're like, oh, now we can afford the ultra suite on the cruise ship. It's like that is our paycheck.
People
get tipped, right?
I pathologically overtip.
Then that's great, and I love
because
it.
Because you
need to come back around sometime.
Yeah. But I do actually. But Danny and I were talking about this as well, and having been someone who's been there, like once because you meet so many people who have been in the business, and I've been on, like I said to him, I've been on job interviews when you're talking to people, and without them being direct about it, you can see that from their conversation, they're alluding to things like, "Oh, you obviously know," So there's so many people who've been there, and most of us feel the moral obligation to overtip, as a compensation, because someone's got to help you guys out.
Yeah, right.
Because so many people, they expect you to do give them a song and dance and perform and everything for 15%. Like there are other people who will just give me this without having to do handstands for you,
right?
Or just I have to go above and beyond just to make a decent living, and can't you just respect that? And a lot of people don't. They don't.
And some people get off on being nasty to
They think just because they have they're paying for something, they have the right to abuse you.
Right.
And I think it's because they're wired that way.
Right. And I believe that if they could, they would treat everyone in their lives that way.
Yeah. I think they do. To whatever extent that they do. It's like people who are buzzkills. They think they're the life of the party. They don't know that they're not.
Right.
But somebody else said that he had someone who he works with someone who chews with their mouth open and just drives them crazy. Or people who deliberately freak out and go crazy on like a crowded subway, and they get pushy and shovey, or they don't get out of the way. So stuff like that. Just like drives them.
I have that. I don't have road rage. I never did when I drove, but I definitely have sidewalk rage. I'm like, don't take up the whole sidewalk. Get off your phone. Pull over to the side if you need a text right now. Let's keep the sidewalk moving. Let's go.
I'm very much to that. I am very much, yes. Defer to people who actually have a purpose. If you can see someone's trying to get someplace, just get out of the way.
Right.
That's one of my favorite things my dad ever gave to us as a kid. One of my favorite thing he ever taught us was, get out of the way. Unless you are the center of attention, and you are pointedly the center of attention, you are asking for so much you don't realize. Somebody slimy, somebody crazy, somebody evil, somebody who is just, they could be, on a flip of a switch, they could just go crazy on you and become, volatile. You're like, do you really want that? Or just step over here and let the people who are going, you don't bump into it, don't be brusque, don't block anybody's path. But people don't get that.
Right.
They never will, and you can't change them.
Nope, never.
But I'm with you.
You can yell at the storm, all you'll get is wet.
Yep,
that's right. You got to go inside and get some cover, man.
That's for sure. Now, there's another one I think that people like.
Who's your favorite Hobbit? I know that question.
Who was your favorite Hobbit?
Samwise Gamgee.
Okay.
He's every man.
Oh. Bruce is a big fan of Sean Astin, so.
I always love the Goonies.
Okay. This is another quick question. I love people love asking this one. Okay. You ever fake anything and get away with it, or just get caught, called out, and utterly destroyed? Details, please.
Did I ever fake anything? Well, I guess. I mean, I faked illnesses to get out of work, but who hasn't done that, Yeah, Quinn, my fiance, she'll make fun of me. She's like, you call out of work all the time. And I'm like, I guess I do. I had a problem with it for a while, a couple years ago. But it's just like that, the depression thing. Like, how do you get yourself out of bed? It's like, I just can't go to that fucking job today and smile at people for 5% tips. Like, I can't do it right now. I'm at a good job now where I'm earning decent money, so that's not as much of a problem.
Yes, but taking abuse for nothing is just
horrible.
What, and you can't. I used to dream of other people having to, like, a national service. Everyone had to do it. Then I thought, like, they'll just pay somebody to do it for them anyway, and they'll never, because they don't have an intrinsic, basic understanding of other people. They have no empathy for other people.
Right, exactly. It's, are you here to be an extra pair of hands?
Yeah,
and
or just they just think you as an object. They don't look at you as a human being.
Exactly.
You've been dehumanized.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was one of my.
I usually get away with that one though.
Okay.
I'm fake calling out of work.
Okay, so let me see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I think
7, 8, 9. One more question.
One more lucky winner.
Choose one more.
All right, I think I have this one here. Your favorite weather?
That's another good question that people like to answer a lot. What is your favorite weather?
My favorite weather is the weather we're experiencing right now. It's the middle of October. The cool crispness is coming into the air. I just love autumn. I was born in November. I'm a fall baby. October is one of my favorite seasons. We've got our wedding planned for next October.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I just love the smell of the decomposition with the rebirth right behind it. And it's just a beautiful time. I know it's supposed to be dark and spooky.
No, it's my favorite time of year myself.
That's part of what I love about it.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not anti-spring and summer, but I get sunburned really easily.
I'm an Irish sweater,
Yeah, right.
and I hate humidity, and I can't stand it. They say there's always a thin layer of water between. I'm a walking barometer. There's a thin layer of water between me and my underwear at all times, and my waistband is always soaking wet.
I buy more Gold Bond powder than an 80-year-old man.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Yes. And the humidity of living here is just. So I'm with you. I love cool, crisp. I always say it could be between 39 and 63 degrees, and I would never complain.
Oh, yes,
that's
absolutely.
my favorite weather. Absolutely.
I love it.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our 20 questions with interesting people. Choose your cue for this edition. I want to thank Timmy very much for taking part and being a guest.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. And
if you want to check me out, you can follow me on Instagram at @TCondonActor and give me some website traffic love at tcondonactor.com.
Absolutely. Any plug you want to give? And you have anything else to say? Anything coming up soon? Or
no, nothing going on right now. I'm just kind of working, paying the bills right now. We're busy at work, but I'm always willing for an opportunity. I'm Equity and SAG-AFTRA. Like I said, you can follow me on Instagram at tcondonactor and check out my website, tcondonactor.com. Got some monologues up there, and you can see what I look like. So check it out.
Fantastic. And as we say, thank you. And as I say every time, as the kiddies say, peace out. Peace out. That's right.